Hello, not manly here. It's been a while, hasn't it? Welcome to the Nova Sea Challenge. The official squad forums has posted a challenge to land a Nova Sea replica on the moon. This is modeled from the real-life Nova Sea probe from Intuitive Machines, which is going to the real-life moon later this year. This probe has very specific requirements, including the height here. For some reason, their engineer report is telling me that the probe is taller than it actually is. I'm just getting out these structural panels here that are 1 meter tall, just to show here. So, the Nova Sea probe, we're supposed to put some science gear on it, we get points for experiments, and as many fake cameras, gizmos, and whatnot, keeping the probe mass under 1.9 tons. And just under 4 meters in height. Let me just extend these legs here, make sure that we got the height right. Yeah, let's raise these legs just a little bit here. Come on. So we'll do that, and then we'll make sure that this probe actually fits with the requirements. For some reason, the engineer report down there is saying that it's actually taller than 4 meters, it's actually wider than 4 meters, but that isn't right. That's the flag panels that I'm using there as structural panels on this craft to get that hexagonal shape that they're looking for in this Nova Sea probe. There we go. With the landing legs at the right position now, at 3.9 meters height, we can get rid of that guide. We can put our launcher back. The next part of the challenge is getting this thing up into orbit and getting it out to the moon. We're supposed to construct a reusable launcher modeled from the SpaceX Falcon 9. On this here, we've got 9 Merlin pretend Merlin engines, and I've got 1 pretend Merlin engine on that second stage there. I'm actually using Thuds. That was the only engine that actually fit properly. But the Thuds actually are a pretty good choice for this type when you actually want lots of engines and you want to shut down some of the engines to make sure you land this thing later. So let's get this thing into space. We need to plan to land the first stage safely, and my plan here involves landing this thing on the continent on the other side of the ocean from where the Kerbal Space Center resides. This is a stock game. They wouldn't let us use any add-ons, not even Kerbal Engineer, and let me tell you, I missed having Kerbal Engineer to help design this thing. Anyway, once we got this thing at a sufficient height, I was able to detach the second stage, and then once we got out of the atmosphere, I deployed that fairing to reveal the Nova Sea probe inside. I could only cram a few science experiments on there, but I'm hoping that those experiments are enough. They tried to get in the same places as all the instrumentation I could see on photographs of the probe. But hey, we'll see how the judges think about that. So, we're going to use the Falcon 9 second stage here to close Kerbin orbit and then to do the translunar injection. I'm not sure what they mean by a direct throw translunar ejection, but hey, everything I've read suggests that it's just tossing that thing up there, kind of like a Hohmann transfer. I'm hoping that's the case because I could not find any examples of a direct throw translunar injection in the real world. Anyway, we're going to close orbit here. The first stage is still high enough up in space that we could switch back to it without having to load an old save. So there's the opposite continent there. And I found that getting it to 110 kilometers apoapsis was enough for this thing to reach the opposite shores of this ocean. I bet some folks there are going to use a barge out in the water, and well, good luck to them, because landing on a pinprick from space is quite a challenge without having things like, well, kerbal KOS or other things. Man, anyway, it would have taken some planning. I just settled for landing this thing on the opposite side of the ocean. And I had an action group there to open up those air brakes, which I'm using as grid fins, and I turned off 6 of the 9 Thud engines there so that I could touch this thing down reasonably well. I did do some practice runs, and I figured that a suicide burn was close to about 1 kilometer up, although I was still pretty conservative with the landing. There we go! Hey, not bad after about 3 or 4 attempts. There we go. we'll retract those fins and then we'll leave this thing on the ground for the judges to inspect. In the meantime, we're sending the second stage up out to the moon. It's not going to have enough delta V to get all the way out to the moon, but that's okay. We're going to get as much juice as we can out of the second stage, then we will deorbit it at Kerbin Apoapsis. Now, for approaching the moon, I did do a retrograde approach. I found that made the most sense so that we could still maintain signal with Kerbin. I am using the normal defaults for a new game, which include having the ComNet enabled. It does allow for limited probe control with no signal, but I tried my best to keep the thing in signal range. What I found here was that I was going to do my orbit insertion at Periapsis there, but Periapsis was well behind the moon, so I ended up having to adjust that once I got the Nova C probe out there. Here's the second stage. I don't have any reaction wheels on these crafts, not on the first stage, not on the second stage, not even in the probe cores. These are all using RCS thrusters for directional control and the gimbals of those engines. The closest engine I could find that matched the engine on the Nova C probe was the Puff monopropellant engine. Now, while that is not quite what they had in mind for the Nova C probe, which was using a Methalox engine, this at least matched the dimensions of the probe much closer than anything else in the stock game. So I ended up just loading those tanks with monopropellant there, and those tanks simulate those little bulbs you see on the two sides of the probe. Now we do get points for science experiments. This is a sandbox save, but we can still do experiments and transmit. And I'm keeping account of all the experiments that I'm doing in space, in low space above Kerbin, in high space above Kerbin, in high space above the moon, and in low space above the moon, and then finally on the surface. I'm hoping that's enough. The judges can decide what experiments are valid or not. But hey, I'll keep account for them no matter. The save and the KSP log file are going to be made available to the judges of this challenge. I'm hoping that they at least show some favor for this one. And there we go. They are allowing custom flags, so to get that hexagonal shape of the probe, I decided to use flag decals. They are lightweight and they seem to do the job, but they did mess up the dimensions in the engineer's report. Here's the second stage, which we are now going to deorbit. Come on, there we go. And we have no problem leaving that thing up there because it'll crash harmlessly on Kerbin's surface. Here is the Nova C probe on its approach to the moon. We're doing our first science experiments in high space. That negative gravioli detector I have on there allows for per biome high space science, so I try to get as many biomes above high space as I could to add to that science count. But I didn't get very many up in high space, but that's okay. We got a few. You will see in a moment the trouble I had with this thing trying to capture. The original plan was to close orbit there, but that is right in the shadow of the moon from Kerbin, so I would have lost signal. Now, yes, I do have limited probe control, but I would have had no directional control, even with RCS. I wound up doing my maneuver out here while I still had signal. This was the closest place I could get to Moon Periapsis to be able to close orbit. At the same time, I was in a good position to be able to get my orbit positioned above the landing zone. The judges have a very specific landing zone in mind, the canyons above the far side crater. I don't know why they call it the far side crater, it's actually on the, I guess you could call the left side crater is what you should call it. But I tried my best, here we go, and we're trying to get a little more science as we get up there. There we go. Good thing we have those solar panels up there. Those were where the solar panels belonged on the real craft, and it was a good thing we had them too, so that we could transmit this negative gravioli science without having to send up lots and lots of batteries. I only have a single 200 energy battery on there. There we go. Now I got pretty lucky here. The lunar orbit insertion just completed, just within Kerbin's signal strength. You can see the indicator up on the top left there. I lose signal right at the end of the burn, just as I cut off the engines. Look at that. Timing. And I couldn't even delete the maneuver yet. So yeah, we got back into Kerbin signal range here, and then we finish closing our orbit. Not bad there, not bad at all. On the way in, I was able to mark the landing zone with KerbNet. And now that we're in low space, we can get some low space science. Not too bad there, not too bad at all. And for those of you who were looking for Alien Space Programs, thanks so much for your patience. I was able to release Alien Space Programs 12.0, or 1.12.0, pardon me, there we go. It still took some time to get that out there. In fact, I haven't posted a video in a long time because, well, real life happened. Oh, did real life ever happen? Here we go. So, we're supposed to land in that canyon location I've roughly marked there with KerbNet, and we cannot do it with Kerbal Engineer. Boy, I miss having Kerbal Engineer. Oh my goodness. I also miss having reaction wheels. I suppose I could have crammed a reaction wheel on there, but I saw no indication that the Nova C probe had any reaction wheels, so I just went with RCS thruster blocks. And those thruster blocks are roughly in the same spot as I found what looked like thruster nozzles on the real-life craft. So hey, I just went with that. At least stock Kerbal Space Program lets us configure those blocks. We can have thrusters in certain places or not. Underneath those hanging solar panels there, I also have some lights that are pretending to be cameras. They just act as lights. Stock KSP doesn't have cameras, but this'll work. Here's a bit of an adjustment here, and also beginning our deorbit burn. Not bad there, not bad at all. We had just enough delta V. There's the landing zone right around there. In lieu of Kerbal Engineer, I'm using Maneuver Node directly above the landing site, just to put it where I believe you need to have enough delta V to land. We got pretty darn close, and I am trying to orient the spacecraft so that that main flag decal faces south, just like the diagrams in the real-life craft. And a little more science. I wonder if my co-competitors have had any inspiration doing science in high and low space. I wonder if those count. I guess we'll find out. There are some folks who got really close designs. They got better landing legs than I did. I wanted functional landing legs. I had no idea if the Nova C landing legs were functional or not, so I just used stock legs. There we go. We're trying to land as close to the requested landing zone as possible, and then the judges say we'll get bonus points if we can do a short hop from that location. The landing zone is right in between three craters there, just on the opposite side of the canyon. From what you see here, we are just within Kerbin's signal range, otherwise this landing would not have been possible in stock. Maybe we could have sent up some relays? I don't know, but I didn't have a lot of time to send up relays and set up a whole comm network up here, so hey, I'm just winging it. We did have enough signal strength though, at least with the stock normal settings. So there's that piece of land there, but I'm gonna overshoot it. I should have been thrusting a lot earlier. And there we go. I shouldn't have stopped thrusting there either, otherwise I would have stood a better chance. Oh well. And if it helps any, it did take 2 or 3 tries to even get this close. They didn't say anything about using saves. Come on. Come on. We can do this. Oh, look out, look out! Oh, don't tip over. Touchdown! Not too bad, actually. Not too bad. Not too far from the actual landing zone. Maybe we'd have some signal problems if this were real life, but hey, we'll take that. There's our coordinates for where we landed. I had to wait until the sun came into view before I could do any real experiments though, but at least we did get them there. So yeah, not bad at all. I've yet to take a look at the videos from my fellow competitors. I'm going to see how they did it. But I wanted to do my own without spoiling myself. There we go. We finally get to do our surface science. And if I had access to the robotic parts, I might have been able to open that hatch and deploy something, but there's no hatch. There's no robotic parts. I understand that Matt Lau did a really good one, where he deployed a return craft from inside there. But we couldn't do that in just purely the stock game. There we go. Whoop. Ah, KSP physics. Don't ever change. As soon as we're done here, I'm going to try to move this probe to a flatter area. The judges did want us to try to do a short hop anyway, so we'll try to do that. There we go. We got 13 experiments in total, if you count the ones up in high and low space. Oh, come on. Up we go. There we go. So we'll land more into that crater there. That'll become this probe's permanent home. Look at that. Yeah, doing this with purely stock parts, not even DLCs, made this an especially tough challenge. In lieu of Kerbal Engineer, I used the built-in stuff in the current version of KSP. We'll take that. Look at that. Look out, we're almost out of fuel. Oh, bounce. Wonderful! And that is the permanent home of this craft. By the way, all the music in here is also from the stock game. That was another rule. I'm guessing for copyright reasons they don't want to get in trouble. But hey, there we go! This probe is safely on the surface of the moon, as close to the landing zone as I could get it. I'm not manly. Fly safe.